you guys could grab some of these and start to pass them out. So, as I said, I'm Mike Rakowski. I've been around a little while. I tell a story about the first banner I saw at Seacoast was shortly after Tim bought the company on Oleander Drive when he had one office. And he had a banner up that said if each of the agents at the time would each do 4 things each week, we could get to 100 million in closed sales for the year. And now we do 3 billion. So I've been around for a little bit. I did this presentation to my team meeting, my year-end team meeting, and then I was asked to do it to the managers meeting, and then Tim asked me if I would do it here. So I really appreciate y'all taking a few minutes. Hopefully it's valuable and you get something out of it. So what I'm handing out now, well, I'll go back for a minute. So a lot of the fundamentals that I'm going to talk about has enabled us to take my team from in 2019, we did 17 million, in 2020 we did 25 million, in 21 we did 47 million, and we closed 105 million last year with 6 people. So I don't have 20 people to try to just assemble all those numbers, so we try to be highly productive in what we do. So that's a lot of the principles that we started with and that I aspire to do and to help my team go to do has really helped us propel in a really good way. So that's a little bit of our background. And my team is Rakowski Blake and Associates. Tom Guzulaitis is on my team marketing our Plain Spring Lakes project as well. So I took a coaching class about a decade ago, and a guy named Aaron Hemsley is a psychologist, and most psychologists figure out how to take folks that are not functioning well in society and just bring them up to where they can handle themselves. His entire coaching practice was taking top 10% in your field and figuring out how to go to an elite status. And so that was the coaching class that I took. This is a sheet that he has. His website's at the bottom if you get a chance to click on it after the meeting or find some of it fascinating. So we started to implement a 100-point day. And go through the sheet. Every time you just pick up the phone and dial, you get a point. Every time you talk to somebody, you get a point. Every time you set a meeting, you get 5 points. And this one's more customized to my style. Like I intermittent fast, so not eating breakfast gives me 5 points. You can kind of customize it to the way you know you're productive. So the earlier I get up, the more productive I am all day. Some folks are night owls. So these are not hard and fast rules. I think you kind of figure out your own rhythm, so to speak. But the key component of that was what he called a SUD scale, the subjective unit of discomfort. Basically, we all have an anxiety scale, right? 1 is, I just woke up, I'm barely coherent, I have no stress whatsoever, I barely opened my eyes. 100 is, and we've all been here, get me out of this situation right now. I'm crawling out of my skin, my heart's beating out of my chest, I need to leave the situation. So a lot of his coaching practice was around understanding your own rhythms and your own anxiety scale and where your performance range is in that scale. The example he used is a stockbroker, right? Just got off the phone with his wife, they got in a fight, he hangs up the phone, his heart's beating out of his chest, his anxiety scale is up here, his secretary calls in and says, Mr. Smith is on the phone, he wants to buy 1,000 shares of AT&T. He said, you can't even take an order at that point because your anxiety scale is so high. Well, if your anxiety scale is a little bit lower, what I call in the 45 range, you take the call, you take the order, you say thank you. But if you know how to keep yourself in a performance range, you take the call, and we've all been there where you say things you can't even believe you just said, right? You say, I'm not gonna let you buy 1,000 shares of AT&T. You're gonna regret not buying 2,500 shares of AT&T at this point, and you make the sale. So one of the things we had to do for a month straight on our calendars every hour is write down what we measured our subjective unit of discomfort scale. And what you realize is you have a pattern, right? You're going through that pattern and you see where your natural rhythm is. And then for me, I schedule paperwork and admin time when I'm very low on that scale, when I shouldn't be customer facing, right? Early in the morning, I'm very good at, and I'm not normally very good at staying quiet and sitting there and just finishing paperwork, but you understand your own rhythm. So the other thing you can do, if you take this with you and implement it, like what I've ended up doing automatically is I'd have to go to the bathroom, but not too bad. I'm gonna get 2 more points before I go to the bathroom. I want to refill on coffee. like this sat on my desk for about a year to a year and a half until it was just ingrained in me to think like that. Like I don't get to go to lunch until I'm at least 60 points for the day before I get to go have lunch. I don't get a refill on coffee until I've earned 10 more points, then I can go refill my coffee. So you can also have fun. I have a buddy of mine that did it at the same time. We set a point goal for the month, and it's kind of like golf. You know, you got to be honest with your own score, right? So we set it for a month, and the goal was, I forget what the goal was. Let's call it 1,000 points for the month. That's super low. That's 10 days worth. But let's call it 1,000 points. If we both made it, we got to go play golf one Saturday. If one of us made it and one of us didn't, they had to caddy for the other. They couldn't play. They had to carry the sticks, right? And if both of us missed it, we had to go to work that day and make up for the fact that we both missed it. So you can bet we both made it. But you can kind of have fun with an awareness of being more productive and kind of have fun with it. So the interesting thing about the SUD scale was he wired up and coached tennis players as well and downhill skiers, mogul skiers. So he was trying to figure out the correlation between a top 50 to 100 tennis player and a top 10. And he studied them and he said, okay, well, it's not fitness, right? All these women and men are super fit. Is it practice? No, it's not practice. They all are grinding away like crazy. Is it the coach? No, some of them have the same coach that are 50th in the world versus 5th in the world. So he spent a lot of time trying to figure out what it was. And does anybody have a guess what the #1 correlation was? Heart rate between points. The best people in the world reset their physiology between events faster than anybody. And what happens, has anybody ever walked out of a test and remember all the questions they couldn't remember when they were in their test? That's your anxiety scale, because your training goes away, right? All the classes you've ever took in real estate, if you're customer facing and you find yourself stressed out, you got to figure out how to bring that SUD scale and your anxiety scale back down, then all your training comes right back. It's just like when we've all walked out of a test and go, I can't remember, I remember all the answers, and I couldn't sit there and remember, and that's test anxiety. Well, the same is true in sports. So his whole coaching practice is around an awareness of that fact. And if this sheet helps you kind of design your day a little bit, I kept it again for longer. It was by my phone, and just like that. If I'm in the car, I would go back when I got to the office and I would see my call log from the phone, and I would log the calls I made while we're in the car, not marking them while I'm driving. So you do it just for 30 days and you'll be amazed at what it ingrains in you. Or if you're getting ready to take a quick trip, if you got to drive to Wilmington for something, what I got in the habit of doing is taking a note card or pre-programming call numbers into my phone before I left for the drive, so I could just hit them and call, and hit them and call, instead of just listening to music. And it's made a huge difference, I think, in our ability to scale, and it's made a really big difference in my income, but also my quality of life, because you're not at the office at 5:30 that night, you're going, oh my God, I've already got 150 points for the day. I can go, right? So it's a quality of life thing as well, as when you're scheduling work time, and then you have an awareness of your anxiety scale and productivity, it just creates a better life. So that coaching class is really cool. The website's on the bottom of that form. The other thing, years ago, I listened to a sermon by a friend of mine that founded Port City Community Church probably a decade or so ago, when he was in auditorium. It's now the largest church in the Wilmington area. But he gave a speech on New Year's resolutions. I hate them. I think they're psychologically devastating. You just set yourself up to fail, and then you beat yourself up, and I'm not a big self-deprecation person when it comes to mindset. So he created, and there's a book out there called My One Word. So what I strongly encourage you to do is, he filtered and I filter my year through a word of the year. 2 years ago, it was transformational. I wanted to transform my body, I wanted to get fitter, I wanted to eat better, I wanted to make more money. So every decision or major decision I made, I kind of filtered through that word. We went up a pretty good bit. The next year was urgency, right? Let's view clients and opportunities. I call them melting ice cream cones, right? It's gonna melt in your hand if you don't do something with it. Have a sense of urgency around that lead, around that voicemail, around that return phone call. This year, my whole team, by the way, our team shares their words And all of my team has carte blanche to call my butt out if I'm doing something that doesn't match my word of the year. So this year it's excellence. So we had some flyers, we had a transition in a team, we had these really pretty, beautiful flyers made, and someone made the suggestion to save money and put a sticker over the other person's name. And I just looked at them and they go, nope, that's not excellent, is it? I said, no, throw them out and order more. Right, so picking that one word, when I make a financial decision, am I making it excellent this year before I write a check, before I make a purchase? Is that the most excellent thing that we can do? So it really changes your psychology versus, we all know it, I go to the gym and in January, I go less because I know by the end of January, the gym's not full anymore, right? And all those people just beat themselves up. Well, I already screwed my resolution up, so screw it. I'm gonna go eat pizza and drink beer, not go to the gym anymore. And so it's really, to me, very unhealthy to set New Year's resolutions. And but that one word to filter through for the whole year, you never feel like a failure, right? You never beat yourself up over it. So I'd encourage you to kind of think about that and where you wanna go for the year of 2023, and maybe pick that word. One of my teammates has gone through a divorce, finishing it up, and her word is strength. She said, I always remember my grandmother saying, don't make decisions out of weakness, make them out of strength. And so her word for the year is strength. But when you consciously, and that's on your mind all the time, you just feel stronger. When you're filtering your decisions through that, you feel better. And more importantly, you feel better. Also, very importantly, your clients feel that in you. They get that energy from you, and it creates just a different sense of energy in when you're customer facing, when you're referral facing, when you're facing with each other. It's just a neat kind of feel. So in that, how many of us ever bought a new car and it's all you saw right after you bought it, right? That everybody's been through it. Or you desire a car and all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. Or, I'm gonna use another example, you've gone and visited friends that live by train tracks and you go, how do you live like this? How do you live with this noise? And they go, what are you talking about? So there's this thing in the brain that most people are unaware of called the reticular activating system. The reticular activating system is what filters out what the brain has determined you don't need to recognize. If it didn't exist, it's actually a principle in a lot of mental illness and schizophrenia and people that can't do it. Their RAS is broken. So their inputs are all over the place. They get everything around them all the time. Well, if we did that, similar to when little babies get everything, but they're in a developmental stage. So if we understand how that system works and you can manage that system, it's amazing what it can do for your life, right? So the same principle of noticing that car, well, you notified your reticular activating system that you desired that car. It read that and said, make sure that we now notice this car, right? Well, the same thing can occur in business and opportunities, in listings, in buyers, in all of life. The same thing can occur if you program your RAS. So here's what I encourage you to do. Most people have no idea what they want. I ask this question 1,000 times, and 90+% of the time, well, I don't, nope, that's not what I asked. What do you really want? And so I have a multi-page journal that I started and amend as I think of things, and it is in detail everything I want in 2023. What do I want to accomplish? What do I want physically? What do I want spiritually? What do I want financially? What do I want our team to do for the year? What do I want? Who do I want to help? How much money do I want to donate to causes I like? So what you're doing when you do that and write it out in detail with two things you can't put on there: how and when, right? You just know that it'll happen. And what's amazing when you do that is you become an antenna. And the things that you have put out there, you now start noticing. You have notified that reticular activating system in your brain for the same way you notified that you wanted to own a car of this color, of this type. And I notice them all over. My buddy TJ and I want the same car, and we just yell it out because we see them everywhere now, right? So you can do that. And it consistently, most motivational speakers, high performance people always say this. And I used to go, oh, that's kind of corny, right? It works. right? I live a life that I could have never imagined, from growing up to a 15-year-old pregnant mother who had me at 16, and neither one of my parents have ever owned a home in their life. I look absolutely nothing like anybody in my family in the way that I get to live life. And it changed my life to understand and adopt these principles. And now I get to help them. I get to pull those folks along. So I'd highly encourage you to think about that. And one of the principles that's really easy for me is, there's a great book, and I'm about to hand that out. Actually, if you guys could start handing them out, that'd be great. So there's a great book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. And one of the things that I'll tell you, the power of why, understanding why you do what you do every day beyond just, I want money, right? So for me, it's the power of home ownership. Because I did grow up very blue collar. I grew up with parents that constantly had to move around, that had to move further and further out of town because there was no affordable housing, right? And so I have a development business as well. In our development business, we develop what I call blue collar entry level neighborhoods. We try to figure out actually how to sell lots to builders at a more affordable price so they can provide more affordable product. Well, in our practice, everybody knows that the power of why, my why, is the power of home ownership. The other thing that I'd encourage you to do is, your favorite word needs to be no. Thank you, I'm flattered, that doesn't fit my goal. It doesn't fit my why. Anybody that comes up to me can look at me and say, I've got the best business opportunity in the world, we're gonna open a chain of bars. Like, oh, that sounds awesome. I think the opportunity is great. That doesn't fit my why of the power of home ownership. And it enables me to say no very comfortably, because I can articulate my why and I can utilize it and not offend anybody. But I do find the most successful people in the world, their favorite word is no. So when you are very clear about what you actually want, not what you don't want, but what you actually want in life, it's very easy to say no to anything that doesn't fit it without feeling guilty. And we all have a wonderful way of feeling guilty to say no to anybody. I've said no to clients. Like, I'm sorry, that's just not what I do. And I think this person would be better suited for you. And you get that comfort level when you start with why, when you really notify your reticular activating system of what you want, it becomes an absolute antenna. And not to be too corny, but one of the things I do, I used to think if you hit the snooze button, you started your day procrastinating, right? I'm absolutely, I'm like, you're a loser already, right? Now I hit it every morning. But I know my schedule for the day, usually before I go to sleep. I hit the snooze button and I have 9 minutes to think about what I want this day, what I want this day to look like, and how to manifest that day, while my SUD scale is, I have virtually no anxiety. So it absorbs it. Now, does that perfect? No, it doesn't always happen. But generally speaking, it's amazing how well it works when you set an intention for the day, when you understand it. Am I mostly an admin day in the office? Am I mostly teammate facing? Am I big developer, builder, client facing? That's a different intention. It's a different outfit, it's a different thought process, but when you start your day that way, it really just changes your energy for the day. And I think energy attracts energy in that light. So here's my challenge. Last night, when I got up this morning, I looked at my iPhone and it said, you weren't plugged in last night, update your operating system later or now, right? How many people have ever gotten that message, right? When's the last time you upgraded your operating system? When's the last time you actually sat down and thought about the way you think and thought about the way you're planning your life in all aspects, not just financial? And so the challenge I have had for my team and the folks around me is upgrade your operating system. You're constantly getting those messages. There's so much information available on human psychology. There's so much information out there. So I put a recommended, I don't listen to music in my car. I listen to books. I actually don't listen to music when I go for a walk, a jog, or a run. I listen generally to books or podcasts. One, for me, music can be up and down. Great song comes on, I run too fast, I wear myself out. Slow song comes on, I slow down. Well, when I'm just in a book or a podcast and I'm listening, I'm really nice and steady on that walk or that run or that exercise or on a rowing machine. So I'm killing two birds with one stone. I'm feeding my mind with something good. I'm energizing my body with something good. And I think the quality of your inputs determines the quality of your life. And social media, horrible news, right? We can finish our week and go, when did I not listen to shitty input this week? And so if you don't consciously manage what you allow to be your inputs, it determines what you can pour out into others, what you can give your clients, what you can give your family, what you can give your spouse, what you can give everybody that's really meaningful to you, especially if you take the lead on that quality of input. So upgrade the quality of your inputs, be really clear about what you want, upgrade that operating system for 2023. If you're into the list here, I'm gonna give you a couple, can I have yours for 1 second? Thanks. I'm gonna give you a couple of my favorites because this is an overwhelming list. Ed Milet's one of my favorites. So he tells a story about a dream he woke up in. And I kind of live my life this way. So he woke up in a cold sweat from a dream. And he explains the dream. He was poor. He could only pay either the water or electric bill in his apartment. So he paid the electric bill, and he would have to take his new wife down to the showers in the apartment complex and shower outside in the cold by the pool before he'd run back inside early in the morning because he was embarrassed. So you see, he woke up, and this is decades and decades ago. He's a very successful businessman now from a self-made perspective. So he woke up in a cold sweat. The dream was he had died. Turns the corner, he's in heaven. He goes, thank God I made it, right? We're in a church, so this is perfect. So he goes, thank God I made it. And he turns a corner, and there's St. Peter. And there's this other guy standing. And St. Peter and him are talking. He said, excuse me, but who's this? And he said, St. Peter looked at me. And he said, that's you if you'd have lived up to all the potential God put in you. He said, I looked nothing like that man. And then he woke up from the dream. And he set an intention for his life to chase down the man he was meant to be. And so he is really a good interviewer of a lot of other people on his podcast. His book, The Power of One More, is based on his alcoholic father going just one more day without a drink. You don't have to worry about years, just go one more day, right? And his father encouraging him when business was tough. It's like, you think about quitting, he goes, just go one more day. Just go one more day, right? So he's really good. On the fitness side, Stephen Gundry, from a nutritional perspective, will teach you things that you have been sold a bill of goods on what you think is actually healthy for your body and not. So if that's one of your primary goals, that's really good. If you like a rah, really motivational, Eric Thomas is really good, and Tim Grover is really good. So those would be my tops. Ed Milet, Gundry, Grover, all really good places to start if you're inclined to want to follow any of this kind of philosophy. But again, I'll wrap it up by saying, if I encourage you to do anything, is upgrade your own operating system for 2023. Thank you very much.